Hey everyone, my name is Darshan. Welcome to Fremont Debate Academy. Today we're going to be talking about unfair definitions. And be warned, this is going to be one of the most advanced topics we cover in this YouTube playlist. So if you don't already have a good grasp of MSPDB format, then I recommend you go rewatch some videos, take some time, do some practice debates, and then come back to this unfair definitions YouTube video. Okay, so really quickly, this cute cartoon is going to basically be describing what we're going to be talking about today. So life isn't always going to be fair, and especially won't be in your debate career, because there's going to be a lot of teams that try to use the definition to take advantage of you, and so you should know how to fight back against that. So in order to fight against what's unfair, first we have to know what is unfair. So an unfair definition is when your opponents define a word or phrase incorrectly so that it gives one side an advantage. For example, the topic, the FDA should ban animal patents for drug patents. So a fair definition of FDA would be Food and Drug Administration, while an unfair definition would be Fremont Debate Academy. And so the definition of Fremont Debate Academy is unfair because it basically pulls out all of the opposition ground, because you're going to be arguing against the definition mostly as the opposition, because the proposition will have defined the topic in the first place. So as the opposition, if the proposition defines FDA as as Fremont Debate Academy, it means that your contentions have no more arguments in them, because your contentions likely talked about the Food and Drug Administration and not Fremont Debate Academy. So as a result, you should be contesting this definition because it gives them an advantage and puts you at a disadvantage. Okay, so then on to refuting unfair definitions, and there's going to be three parts to this. First of all, what's wrong? So you should basically be explaining that your opponents define something unfairly. Describe why the definition is unfair, and include that it takes away from the education and fairness of the debate. And that phrase, education and fairness, is super important, and we're going to talk more about that in the next slide. But overall, you need to be describing what's wrong with their definition and tell them specifically what was defined unfairly. So in the previous topic, it would have been FDA was defined as Fremont Debate Academy instead of Food and Drug Administration. So you need to specifically say that. Secondly, you want to point out a new definition. The reason why you want to give a new definition is because you don't want to look like you're whining or trying to win the entire debate off of this one definition. You don't want it to look like a technicality. And in my experience, I've seen a lot of parent judges say that they didn't vote off of the unfair definition because they saw it as winning off of a technicality. So you don't want to look like that. You want to propose a new, fair definition so that it sort of looks like you're giving everyone a chance to compete and only just correcting an oversight for the education and fairness of everyone. You should also be giving your judge a reason to prefer this definition, and again, the reason to prefer it is always going to come back to education and fairness. The reason why we prefer Food and Drug Administration over Fremont Debate Academy is because the Food and Drug Administration actually deals with these drug patents, while Fremont Debate Academy simply does not. So it's not educational to talk about the Fremont Debate Academy in the context of drug patents, because the Fremont Debate Academy just doesn't do that. So you have to talk about the impacts of fairness in education as well. If we're not getting education from debate, what's the point of doing debate? What's the point of everyone sitting here for so long? What's the point of the activity as a whole? Those kinds of impacts are going to be super important to leverage, but you don't want to overdo it, because again, the whole point is not to make it look like you're whining too much, but instead to propose a new fair definition that allows you to have the fairness in education. Okay, and then the third thing is going to be extending this definition. So you should use this definition throughout the debate. Each speaker should bring up why it is better than the old unfair definition. The second and third speakers should specifically explain why you're winning under either definition. This way, again, you make yourselves look even better in front of the judge, because again, the judge will say, oh, they're not trying to win off of a technicality. They're really just trying to correct the opponents and give us all a more fair scope of the debate, and as a result, they're still winning underneath the opponent's definition. And so that's a good way to win in basically every single circumstance, whether or not your judge buys it. You should also be making preemptive arguments. Now, what does that mean? That basically means, as a third speaker, you should be going up and saying, oh, I know my opponents are going to talk this XYZ in response to my arguments, but here is why their definition is unfair. And make that preemptive argument so the judge automatically doesn't even write it down when it comes to their speeches. So make those arguments in advance of their arguments in order to give yourself the best chance. And so overall, you shouldn't just be using this unfair definition tactic in the first opposition speech to just say, oh, my opponent's definition is wrong. Instead, you should actually believe in it and use it in every single speech. And if you don't believe in it enough to use it in every single speech, it simply should not be talked about in the round. Okay, so for some things to note. You can use the same format of argumentation for other unfair parts of your opponent's speeches. For example, unfair weighing mechanisms, you can deal with it in the same way with the same three-step process, but keep in mind you should be offering your own definition weighing mechanism standard in basically every single scenario. Secondly, it's important to explain why you win under either definition. Again, because you don't want to look like you're winning off of technicality, and you want to look like you're being the good, fair person in this debate. You should also include specific reasons to prefer your definition. Earlier we talked about how the Food and Drug Administration deals with drug patents. That's actually a type of predictability argument, where it's predictable that the Food and Drug Administration is going to deal with these drug patents, while it's unpredictable that you're going to be talking about Fremont Debate Academy for these drug patents. However, you can also talk about dictionary definition. Let's say the topic was the U.S. federal government should militarily intervene in the Middle East. Well, the dictionary definition of the word military is one thing, but if the proposition says that they're going to be giving medical supplies, you can say the dictionary definition of military is not medical supplies and medical relief, and as a result, your definition of the actual military is better than their definition of medical supplies. And the last concept you can sort of use is ground loss, and the way you can think of ground loss is as a court, and so there's the halfway line, and the proposition has half the court and the opposition has half the court, and you use the court to put down your arguments. But when you lose ground because of an unfair definition, you have no ground on your side of the court to put down your own arguments, and as a result, you automatically lose because of the unfairness of their definition. But ground loss is sort of more ambiguous and might not be able to be easily understood by a parent judge, so that should really only be mentioned by experienced judges who have already been sort of within the tournament sphere in the past. So as a result, dictionary definition, predictability, and those kinds of things are going to be generally the better specific reasons to prefer your definition. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more content, and we'll see you guys next time.